The most repeated question is Toronto Ultra gonna be called KOI at some point?
And then when we announce it, hopefully it won't be like the announcement that we made for Fortnite.
Right. Hopefully no. Yeah, okay. Muy buenas, bienvenidos a un nuevo programa de Al Lío Podcast. Desde que empezamos este podcast, nunca hemos hecho un programa grabado y lo hemos subido después. Este es el primer programa que vamos a hacer así y te agradezco mucho que estés ahí, que nos veas un día más, contenido sobre el panorama de League of Legends en España y en Europa. Quería hacer esta intro primero por una razón, y es que en la entrevista, dado que yo conozco a Adam hace bastante tiempo, la entrevista empieza de una manera un poco abrupta. Es como una conversación normal que tenemos nosotros y a partir de ahí empieza la entrevista. No hay ningún tipo de intro ni nada. Entonces, bueno, pues aquí os hago la intro. Y luego, por otro lado, también hay momentos, y esto va en especial para los fans de KOI, que quieran saber un poco más sobre su equipo, en el que vais a ver unos pequeños cortes, ¿vale? Esto no es porque hayamos cortado nada de lo que él dice, es simplemente porque al estar yo solo grabando aquel día con él, la entrevista se grabó ayer, bueno, haber estado yo ayer grabando con él, yo tenía que levantarme en algunos momentos a mirar la cámara para ver que todo iba bien y que no se había perdido parte de la entrevista porque el móvil se había quedado sin batería, los micrófonos o lo que fuera se había quedado sin batería. Entonces, pues esos son los cortes que vais a ver directamente porque yo me levanto y miro a ver si va todo bien. La entrevista es un poco larga, ya ves, nos pusimos bastante cómodos a la hora de hablar y tratamos sobre todo. Tratamos sobre quién es él, de dónde sale él, cuál es su background, digámoslo así, y para que le podáis poner un poco más de... porque podáis conocerlo un poquito mejor también, quién es el CEO del equipo de KOI. Y luego también, obviamente, hablamos al 100% ya sobre KOI, sobre el futuro y sobre las cosas que van a hacer. Y sin más, te dejo con la entrevista y ojalá te guste. Si estás en YouTube, danos un sub. Porque es completamente gratuito, y si estás en Twitch, pues también, porque al final pues me pagáis el billete de metro para ir a grabar a gente como Adam. Disfruta la entrevista, hasta luego. Okay, so one thing that I wanted to ask you, since I have the experience with you, you once told us in MADLIONS one thing, and I'm not sure if you want to talk about it, which is one thing of your personal life, which is what happened on the September 11th, that you were supposed to go to the World Trade Center and you didn't go. I don't know if you're comfortable talking about that, but I think that's an amazing story and I wanted to ask you about that. If you don't want to, I won't.
Yeah, well, okay, even now when I talk about it, it still kind of feels...
If you don't want to, it's fine.
No, I can talk about it. I think it's like a very meaningful part of my life. Like, I'm not, my parents, my grandfather is like a Greek Orthodox, I'm Greek, so my grandfather was a Greek Orthodox priest. My mom was very religious, my dad a little bit less so. I'm not sure what I think about religion, but, on that day, I thought, there's probably a God here, because it makes me kind of feel, but on in the morning of September 11th, 2001, I had an early flight to go to New York for a meeting in the World Trade Center, and it was all planned. I was ready to go, and on the night before, I got like a really kind of bad like toothache. It was like a tooth was impacted. I'm not really sure I remember, but it was like really, really painful. And I took, Advil and stuff to try to make it go away because I wanted to go on the flight. And then in the morning, I said to my wife, I can't go like with this kind of pain in my tooth. So I canceled the flight and I set up an appointment with like the dentist instead. And so I went to the dentist. And the flight from Toronto to New York is less than an hour, and it takes you like from downtown Toronto and in a kind of a small plane straight to downtown New York, and then you go for the meeting. And the meeting was like for probably like 10 o'clock in the morning over there. And so we, I went to the dentist, and I did what I was going to do there. They put me kind of under the injections for the pain. And so when I left there, I went back to work in the office, and I worked in downtown Toronto. Mm-hmm. And when I came in, people were surprised to see me because I didn't know that there was planes that had hit the tower that I was supposed to be in. And so the people at the office thought that I was there already, right? And the tower hadn't collapsed yet, but there was a plane. And when I first went into the office, people weren't sure what was going on. Like some of them were joking around and laughing and saying, this crazy guy, kind of flew the plane into the World Trade Center. Adam, you were supposed to be there. And I was looking at it and I thought, like, what is going on? And then, as the day went on, and the second plane hit, and then, then the tower fell down. I couldn't even talk. I mean, everybody, the whole office was very silent. And the people that I was going to meet with were in the tower that fell down. And believe it or not, like some of them actually survived and many of them didn't, because a lot of the people started to kind of go down the stairs to kind of get out of the building there. And so, I mean, but for the grace of God, as they say, that would have been me. And, I went back. I had a couple of, 2 kids at the time that were 1 and 2 years old. So again, it's very hard for me to even, say it without kind of
getting emotional about it.
Yeah. Because I love being alive.
I mean, yes.
And, there's so many things that I, kind of experienced and even the stuff that I'm doing right now, which I love very much. And, living is a very good thing. And I know, especially for young people, and I've got my own kids that struggle with mental health and that kind of thing. And you know what? I just tell them, find your way and live your life, because life is good. The alternative is, it's not, the alternative cannot possibly be better, when you have so many wonderful things that you can focus on. And if what you're focusing on are the negative things, you need to get some help. Like you don't have to live like that. You probably have a problem that is no different than, the fact that I have a problem and I have to wear glasses, okay? Like I don't walk around, without my glasses on, not being able to see and bumping into everything. I go to somebody and they help me with my glasses and now I can see. And mental health is the same kind of a thing. If you have like a problem with that, if you have struggles with your life, if you're thinking about, horrible things, you should get, I encourage you to get the help that you obviously deserve. But I kind of mourn for all of the things that I have been able to live for and accomplish, and the people that I've met, and my children that have grown, that, could have just been completely over.
Yes. Well, how's that for a start?
That is a crazy start, dude.
But...
Yeah. Now you've softened me up, and now whatever question you say, it's not going.
That's just easy for now. But I want to say that thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Especially, thank you for sharing, because I know that must be really tough to share. For me, as I said before, I had the pleasure of working with you for some years, and I remember perfectly the day you said that. We were having lunch, and you shared that with us, and it really, really touched me. And some people that work with you, or some of the fans of Koi, or some whoever, might see you as, the CEO, some guy that is just up there and tells everybody what to do. But what I wanted to do too is some people that get to know you a little bit better, because you are the face behind the @Grayson in Twitter. So I wanted people to know you better a little bit too, because I know you're a great guy. So people might ease up a little bit too when it comes to talk to you in social media and stuff.
Right. I will say though, there was another kind of, it's not 9/11, but when we were struggling as Mad Lions, the year that we got relegated from the Superliga, and we, Carlos was the manager at the time, and we were trying to figure out what, the team should have been better. And I remember I came back and took the players for a walk, the Mad Lions players, and I basically said, guys, because I think the problem at the time, without getting into all the details, a lot of it was mental, right? We had, you know, and I wasn't sure if we had like the full commitment from the players, and so we went for a walk back at our headquarters back then, the Mad Lions one, and I said to them, you know, like if you fail here, like I want you to understand that we will be okay, but you guys are going to struggle more than we're going to struggle. So I don't know like what is going on, but you should figure it out, because if we get relegated, it will be worse for you than it will be for us. We will figure out something else.
And it was.
Yes.
And it was, yes.
But I remember you coming after we got relegated, and we were over there, and you were very emotional, right? Because
I still get emotional.
You had decided that you were going to go to a different direction, and you said to me, Adam, you know, like I will always be a Mad Lion, right? And it's like I like this place has given me so much, but you know I think this is like a change that we need to make. And I remember that day. It was a sunny day here in Madrid, and I think we gave each other a hug.
Yeah.
And then we kind of went in different directions. But I'm really happy for obviously the success that you've had in the stuff that you've done since, and we've done some success as well, and now we're here together.
Yes. Life is amazing. At the end of the day,
live.
Yeah.
Living is fun.
That's what you were saying. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So for people to get to know you a little bit better, you're Canadian.
Yeah.
Your parents are from Greece.
Cyprus,
actually, Cyprus.
Yes.
Okay, and you married in Cyprus.
Yes.
Wow.
Here's a thing. I think I've just finalized the paperwork so I can get my Cypriot passport again. Mm-hmm. So I was born in Cyprus, but we moved to Canada when I was like 5 years old. And if you remember, you know, back in the history of Cyprus, you guys probably don't know, but in the 1970s, it was invaded, you know, and so there was a lot of people from Cyprus that left as refugees, and so that was my family at the time. My parents was 4 kids actually having to leave to go to a different country in the other side of the world where it was cold. It's not very cold in Cyprus.
Yeah.
And so I grew up in Canada. Like I said, my grandfather, you know, and my family, a lot of them stayed in Cyprus. But we, you know, when we came to Canada, my parents in particular decided that they, you know, Canada was like the future for our family, and they wanted us to grow up more as Canadians than kind of as Greek Cypriots or you know, from Cyprus or whatever, or even as Europeans. And we did that for most of it. I mean, I speak a little bit of Greek, but not a lot. You know, I didn't have like, I've got a birth certificate, but, you know, I don't have like a passport. I don't have any of the stuff. I'm not an EU citizen because I don't have all of the paperwork. But when we got married with my wife, you know, as you get a little bit older, and by that time I was in my early 30s, like I was starting to think, you know, I've got a family over there that I haven't really met a lot. And so I said to my wife, Elizabeth, who was my fiance at the time, like, why don't we go and get married in Cyprus? And she thought it was a great idea. Her family is from England and South Africa. And so my family is in Cyprus and Canada and the United States. And so we thought it's a perfect place for like everybody from the middle of everywhere to go in. Mm-hmm. And we got married in a little village in Cyprus with like all of the locals there thinking, you know, why are these people coming from there? Right. My grandfather did the ceremony. And so, wow. And it was a wonderful experience. But now that I'm even older, you know, I've been thinking maybe like the opposite of what my dad was thinking when he left, right? Now I'm thinking like, especially when I travel over here to Spain and Europe and see a lot of the stuff, like when I started coming over here, even in Spain, like I couldn't believe how much more in common like my parents and our culture from Cyprus had with over here, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that I grew up thinking was weird, you know, not Canadian, not American, you know, was more normal over here. Mm-hmm. And it felt like I had been missing this part of my background, right? My family background. And so And so I, decided to kind of change that. So I went in, I had to go to the embassy in Ottawa. I had to have interviews. They had to get all of my paperwork. I was born in Cyprus, so I'm by birth a citizen.
Yeah.
And so are my kids. And so I got my passport, my ID number. I can be an EU citizen now, so I can come over here and go back whenever I want. But I also want to make my kids citizens of Europe as well. And
Always good.
I want them. None of my kids speak Greek. They don't speak any kind of the language. They've only been here a few times, and I think I have a great deal of respect for the decision my dad made. I think that was the right decision at the time. But I think you cannot go away from your past and your background. Okay, and I think it is not good for my kids to grow up not knowing that this continent, and in particular in Cyprus, but really the bigger kind of European continent, that especially the Mediterranean part of it, is, it's who we are. It's like you go back thousands and thousands of years of our history is there, and whatever number of years is in Canada, and you can't say I'm going to ignore all of my past, my history, my family, the background.
Not a good idea.
No. And I'm very happy to be exploring that. I think my passport is ready now, so I can announce here on this thing that I'm actually a European citizen as well.
Welcome to the team.
Gives me a good escape, especially if the United States decides to make Canada the 51st state.
Yeah. Okay, so that's amazing. I'm pretty sure your parents had to go when that happened in Cyprus and moved the entire family. I'm pretty sure you got amazing values from that because,
I can't, can you believe what they did? I don't know how.
Imagine.
They had no money, okay? They didn't speak the language, okay?
Yeah.
They got on a plane with 4 little kids. I was 5 years old. My sister was 2, okay? And then my older brother was 8 and 9. So you have a 9-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old. Your country has been invaded. Your home is no longer yours, okay? You're, running away, and then you go to another country. I mean, thank God for Canada because they accepted the refugees. But my dad had a grade 6 education, right? My mom had a grade 5 education. And they were, at the time that they came to Canada, they were probably in their early 30s. What kind of balls do you have to do to be able to do that? For your kids, especially. And raise the 4 kids and then have all of your kids go to university, I think that's maybe something that we should be thinking about, how we have lost the ability for people to have families, be able to do a job, buy a house. My parents were mostly hardworking, normal people. They weren't rich people. They didn't have Cyprus is not a very wealthy country. I know there's a lot of tax people coming over there now, but back then, it was a small little villages.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know. My kids say to me now, the benefit of everything that I've been able to kind of get and maybe provide for them, that they could not afford to have 4 kids and be able to live in. It's not this. The times change so much. Crazy. It's crazy. You have to kind of understand about what has changed in society. Yeah. That you could do that in the 1970s, and it's impossible to do that in 2025. Definitely, yes. Anyway, it's not a politics. Let's say not impossible, but really hard now. It's really hard. For normal people, you would probably be very, very poor. Yes, right? Definitely, yes, yeah, yes. The 4 kids. Okay. Yeah. And I don't think we were very rich, but, we didn't feel poor. I mean, went to school, we had vacations, we did what, I don't know, as a kid you don't care, but I mean, I think at the same time, anyway, look, we can kind of get into that. I just say, and again, both of my parents have unfortunately passed away, but I have so much respect for, you don't really know, and until you get older, until you get, especially when your parents kind of, if they pass away and they're no longer around, and then you get closer to the age that they were when they passed away, you're always thinking as a kid that your parents seem to know, stuff, that things are under control, and as you get older, you realize how you realize to appreciate more how hard it must have been on them, right? Because
Yes.
if you think, how hard is it on me to do stuff, and how you're not sure about various things, especially when it comes to your family and your kids and your, that kind of stuff, and you're trying to make the decisions that are the best, and you never know, and you think back, and you can kind of connect a little bit more, and you kind of think, Dad, okay, I get you now. Okay.
That's amazing.
I understand now how afraid you must have been
Yeah.
when you had to do some of this stuff, and I never knew how afraid you were, right? And it really is kind of like a very bonding experience. As you get older, to kind of understand that they were making decisions that they were probably freaking just terrified. Right?
Yes, especially when you have kids and you understand that.
Yes.
How Yeah. After all, you grew up in Canada, in Toronto.
Yeah.
And you grew up there. You studied, and what do you do before getting into esports? What was your job?
Okay, so my job is my job is mostly like as an investing in venture capital. So I was very fortunate in when I started graduating from university, I was always kind of a bit of a geek in the computer stuff, even before the internet existed. And so I went to like a business school in Toronto, and then I got a job with a venture capital company in Toronto. And what venture capital companies do is they raise a bunch of money, they have money. What they do is they find small companies with new technologies, new ideas, and then you invest to develop that idea. And then most of them don't succeed, but the few that succeed, become very, very big, and that's how you make money for everything else. And the best place for somebody like me to have been in the 1990s was in a venture capital company where when the internet was being invented, like as a young person, and think about this, like I was in my 20s, like all of the old boomers that I worked with didn't, like I don't know, maybe they had typewriters. I don't even know, like they didn't know. And so we're sitting here trying to invest in internet and technology, and and they had no idea, right?
Right.
So what they saw is this like young guy over here who seemed to know a lot about this stuff, right? And it was a really small fund. Like we had like hardly any money when I started there, and it grew to like have over $1 billion over the time that I was there. But so I was there, and I started looking at companies in my 20s, and the first technology that we invested in that became big is a company called SoftQuad. Okay, and what they did is they invented with a guy by the name of Tim Berners-Lee. Okay, something called HTML. Okay, and HTML is what you do. It's what the internet is on. Okay?
Yes.
Back then, it wasn't clear what technology would basically power the internet. And there was like other forms of markup language, which is what it's called. And so these guys had a product called Hot Metal, okay? And Hot Metal because it's HTML, if you kind of look at it.
Yeah.
And so this is something you have to actually buy in a store. You couldn't download things from the internet. And so the Hot Metal product was there. And their idea was, look, there's this thing that's going to be the internet, and we have developed this HTML thing, and we think HTML is going to be the standard for how you create web pages, and so you should invest some money into us. And so that was one of the first deals that I did. We put in $1.5 million into that company, and it eventually became a multi-billion-dollar company down the road. Okay?
Yeah.
And then we invested in the first company that does firewalls.
Okay.
So, I mean, you think about it. Okay, so you have web pages, and the companies say, well, people are hacking me. Well, you need a firewall. Well, these guys developed the firewall technology. So it was called secure computing. And so they developed it was Border Networks. They were acquired eventually by a bigger company called Secure Computing. And then they were acquired by an even bigger company. And then they were acquired by Intel. Okay, so it all went through that thing. Needless to say, that was a very, very big win as well, right? So I kind of went through the stuff over there. But the biggest one of the time...
so there's a bigger one than this.
Yes.
Okay.
Bigger one, you might not remember it these days, but because it didn't succeed in the super long run, but it was very big in the medium long run. Okay. And that company was called Research in Motion. Okay. And what they you guys probably know it better as BlackBerry. Okay.
Yeah.
So they came into my office, and we were talking about the future of the stuff. And again, remember, like I invested in HTML and in the companies that make digital iPhones. We invested in the company that makes Wi-Fi, okay? It was a great day because all these technologies were all being invented. And if you were smart and at the right place and your bosses gave you enough freedom, you could go and find these stuff and say, I think this is going to be a big technology, okay? And with BlackBerry, they had this idea, and they basically had like a block of wood. It wasn't even a phone. And they were basically saying, so think about it. You know, you have this, you have a screen on it, and I send you an email, and then you can see it on your screen, and then you can type, and then you can send it back.
Wow.
And I said, get the fuck out of here. What kind of magic is that? And they said, no, we can do it. And I said, okay, but you have a block of wood. How do I, if anybody can tell me. And so they said, okay, we have a deal with Southwest Bell, which at the time Southwest Bell was in the southern part of the United States. It was one of the biggest telecommunications companies, and it was the ones that was most investing in new technology, right? So they said, we have a deal with the CEO of Southwest Bell that if we can get this developed, they will carry it in their stores. And I said, okay, when you're in venture capital, everybody tells you a lot of bullshit, right? And so, anyway, so Jim Balsillie, who was the person that came in, he's the CEO, he said, I can call him, and we can, you know, and so he put on the call, and he got to the CEO of Southwest Bell, right? Which, think, this is a small little company, right? So, and it's a Canadian company, he's calling the US guys, and the guy on the other side basically said, Adam, if you guys in Canada do not support this technology, you guys are the biggest losers I know, okay? Because this is going to revolutionize mobile communications. And so, anyway, long story short, we had to invest some money in there, but I didn't have the official authority to be able to put in the amount of money that I invested into it. Okay, so I had to go and find other people to help, you know, get the amount of money that they needed. And so I went downstairs. There was another investor in the same building who was like the Warren Buffett of Canada. I think.
Okay.
He was very famous. He didn't know who I was. I, of course, knew who he was because I would see him in the elevator when I was going to my office, and I was too afraid to say hi. So,
Okay.
so, but I had the nerve at this time. I thought, I see this. And so I went downstairs to their office, and I said, I want to talk to this guy, for this receptionist. And she said, like, who are you? And I gave her my name. And somehow he knew who I was, okay? And so we went in, and I said, okay, so Jim, tell him what you just told me, okay? And so he went through the same thing. And then he said, I could only invest up to $5 million, right? Which is a lot of money, but they needed like 25 million. So he said, how much money do you need to make this happen? And he said, okay, I'll put in the 20 million, okay? But Adam has to tell me that it's okay to do the deal. And if Adam says it's okay, I will do the deal with Adam.
Okay.
And so we did the deal. The company, BlackBerry at the time, was almost bankrupt, okay? And the problem is they owed a lot of money. So I honestly think very few people would have done that deal, but they found the right guy at the right place. And our investment was eventually worth, okay, not my money because I was just a young employee, okay? But for the company that I worked for, that amount, our $5 million became worth $1 billion over the course of the next. And then unfortunately, you know, BlackBerry didn't kind of survive Apple.
Yeah.
But before Apple, you know, BlackBerry was.
I had one.
Yeah.
I had one.
Yeah, that was, look, and one of the things I often tell young people, and I met with some young people here earlier, I think I benefited tremendously from having my boss and my boss's boss, and think about, like, I was pretty junior in my 20s working at a company like this, and they noticed, they knew that I could do stuff, and they just let me do it, right? And maybe at times they didn't give me like the titles that I would have wanted, or even maybe the amount of money, but they didn't stop me from basically doing the stuff if it was a good idea, okay? And I think working, you know, kind of in esports right now makes me feel the same way, because there's a lot of young people that work in esports. There's a lot of young people out there, and I don't believe that everybody has to wait their turn to get to this level and then to this level and then to this level and then become old and then make some money, right? I think if you have good ideas and you are persistent and you want to come and talk to me about them, okay, I will support good ideas. Now, not every idea is a good one, but I think I'm smart enough to know when a good idea is
a lot of experience, yes.
And if it's a good idea, I will help you to basically.
You are good enough to see an idea and being like, okay, we can put $20 million in this. So imagine.
Yes. And I think, look, I've had I've done a lot of great things in terms of my life. I mean, that part of it was obviously the very big stuff. I've done mostly, kind of company type things, right? But through all of this, okay, so if you go back into like the 90s, while I was doing whatever, the BlackBerry stuff, I would go home and play on my PlayStation, right? Right. When I was, kind of feeling traumatized because I could have gone, to 9/11 over there, I would come home and play on my Dreamcast, okay? It kind of,
Sega.
The video games have been, the Dreamcast was like around that time, right?
Yeah.
And so, video games have always been a part of my life in terms of, both the competitive side and just the storytelling side, right? And sometimes my wife complains though, but
okay.
But when there was an opportunity in esports, that came, even though it was later in my life, like I'm not, in my 20s anymore. It seemed like a really good opportunity to get. Can you hear that music?
Yeah, that's for
Oh, okay.
I won't say, just in case.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I think that's going to be a pretty good announcement when we make that.
I mean, I think it's going to be, for me, the best that you could possibly do, yes.
Okay, let's not spoil it.
No.
Anyway, so when we finally kind of got into the idea of esports, it seemed to me like a dream come true. Like, wait a second, I could work on the business side, be with some of the greatest games, with some of the best players, and then all of this stuff that we do, it seems like, if you're a bit of a geek, if you're into technology, if you're into video games, I mean, this is like perfect kind of combination.
It is definitely. So how does a venture capitalist, so much success, go into esports? How and why?
Why? I think because I like it, is what I would say, okay? And, you have to find the right opportunity to take, like a big risk like that, which is like different from what I, would normally do. But, by the time that, and it was mostly with the Overwatch League when, that was kind of all coming together. But when you can get to a point of your life where you can take some risks, is what I would say, right? And so at that time, it seemed like a pretty good risk for me to take, for my wife and family to support me, and I was also sick of all the corporate stuff. Okay, that's the other big part of it, like the venture capital stuff.
Time to change.
Yeah, whatever, investment banking, M&A, like all of that stuff. Like made me very unhappy with my, I could still be a big shot, I could still go to a big office and I could still do that, but I would sit there and be miserable thinking, and it, like the passion that I had when I was in my 90s and doing the BlackBerry stuff, like eventually some of that passion just kind of goes away, right? And then it becomes a little bit more boring, right? And it was kind of time for a pivot. And I would say this is the best job that I've ever had. Okay, in terms of what I'm doing right now. It's the most fun that I have.
Really?
But it's extremely challenging. Esports is among the most difficult industries you can do. And there's a lot of young people in esports that frankly don't know what they're doing. And I know that they don't know what they're doing because a lot of the time I don't know what I'm doing, right? Because everything is constantly changing. And so what you think is true in one time, 6 months later is no longer true, right? And what I tell our people internally is every year you should stop and decide whether what you thought last year is still true.
Right.
Okay? Because it changes that fast that you have to stop every year and say, this is what I thought before, is it still true? Okay? And a lot of the time, a lot of what you thought for sure is not true anymore, right? But that change is what keeps it exciting, right? And so, look, there was an opportunity for esports. I think some of the things that we thought were going to happen 5 years ago didn't happen. New things happened. But I couldn't be prouder of what we've built, what we have. And the people that I've met, the connections that I've made back over here to Europe and Spain. And like I said, it is good in my age, as an older person to wake up every morning and still be like so excited about what I'm going to do that day. many people my age, I'd say, don't understand why I spend my weekends watching League of Legends. But, you know, I would like nothing else. Like when our team is, like I watch every game.
Okay? Every game.
I watch every game.
Every game, Superliga and...
Superliga a little bit less because I find that with the Superliga games, we don't communicate, like the schedule changes, right? So for some of the other ones, I know when the schedule is going to be. So a lot of the times yesterday, for example, I was watching our game, but I didn't know that we actually had a game until yesterday, right? And so...
That's a question that some of the fans left me for you.
Yeah, that's something that we have to kind of figure out the schedule. But when I can, I try to watch every game that we have. Not because I have to, but because I want to watch them. Like I'm as invested in the stories as the fans are, right? And if I am one of the owners of the company and I don't care about the stories, then why would anybody else care, right? I mean, that's kind of the way that I look at it, right?
Yeah. If you don't care, why would they care?
Yeah. So like I don't watch it because I have to. I watch it because I'm following the story that you guys are following. And I'm excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, right? We are all in this together. Yes. Okay. Before jumping into Koi, because the fans left me a bunch of questions for you too.
Okay.
I kind of filter all of them, and I have some of my own too. Before jumping into Koi, which is the latest step of your of your run here in esports, I also had some questions about the previous which is MADLIONS. For me, it's kind of, as you said, for me it's also kind of hard because for me, I've worked in different countries with different people and different companies. For me, it was the best group of work that I ever had until today. It was an amazing feeling waking up every morning and going to an office where you liked everybody. We were together. It was amazing. But unfortunately, it came to an end with the team going down. And I wanted to ask you the first thing about MADLIONS Superliga disappearing. From the management perspective, high management perspective, what went wrong on your perspective, and why didn't Overactive Media decided to go into the second division and try to come up again and just leave it there?
Well, okay, like I think there's a lot of different issues that were going on, kind of at the time, I think. First of all, it wasn't our plan to get relegated, okay?
Of course.
We saw that, as a disaster at the time, and we were desperately trying to kind of figure out like what to do to basically and look, and for those of you that didn't follow MADLIONS, and I know that we've got a lot of Koi fans, MADLIONS was like a championship team. It won kind of EU Masters at the time. It had some of the greatest players that we like. It was a team built on success, and it continued to be successful for some period of time. But then it started to kind of decline over a period of time, and I think we struggled, and maybe we still are struggling now with the current team. In terms of figuring out the identity of the Superliga team versus the LEC team, okay? And what is the purpose of one team versus the other team? Is it like a team that is a feeder team for the best talent for the main team? Or is it a team that should be trying to win on its own, regardless of that kind of stuff? Is it a team to build Spanish talent, or is it a team to put the best players that you can together? So I think we never came to a definitive answer on that. We kept kind of changing our minds. We're going to try this, and then once you start not having a clear direction that everybody can kind of buy into, it loses its focus, okay? And I think part of the reason that we didn't have a clear direction is that there was just differences in ideas, right? And we couldn't get everybody, from my perspective, if I was to talk to you, you would give me one idea. If I was to talk to, Peter Dunn or Mac later on, they would have a different idea. If I was to talk to Till, he might have and so we had a whole bunch of different ideas, but there wasn't enough clear support for one of the ideas versus the other. So we would maybe go this way for a while, and then we would say maybe go this way for a while, right?
Yeah.
And I think I think that kind of struggled. And what happens is when you lack a clear direction, okay, everybody lacks focus because they're not sure what outcome you're looking for. Okay,
Definitely,
is the outcome you want to be the champion of EU? Is whatever the outcome is, if you make that very clear, then everybody will work to it and you will succeed. Okay?
Yes.
The question is that the best outcome? And that's where you kind of are arguing about what is the best outcome that we want, and we couldn't agree with what the best outcome was, so we kept trying different things. So when we got relegated, if you remember at the time, the amount of like the salaries and all of that kind of stuff in Superliga and the tier 2 teams even was like just skyrocketing up, right?
Yes.
And we, you know, or they wanted us to buy a team like at a kind of a crazy price.
To the spot, yes.
And so, and it didn't make financial sense for us to basically invest that kind of money when we had a team. We didn't have a clear sense of direction. Okay, we screwed up what was basically one of the best teams in Europe into a team that got relegated, and and so I looked at the outcome that we had, okay, and I didn't have confidence that I was getting feedback for a plan that was clear enough for us to basically say we can do that. Okay, there was still confusion as to what the role was, and so I thought, the best case here for us, maybe in the short run, is to be relegated, okay? Let's clear it out and see, without having to do any kind of baggage. Let's focus on the LEC team for now, and then we can come back to Superliga later when we have a better idea of what it's going to be for, okay?
Right.
And, and now obviously we did the KOI stuff, and it ended up being with Riders as well. It ended up being good, but accidentally good, for down the road, because we ended up doing the mergers and so forth. But I think we still continue to struggle with what the purpose of Superliga is. Okay, and I think when we were struggling with some of that as Mad Lions, there was fewer people that cared. Okay, because the KOI fan base is so much bigger.
Yeah. Now the speaker is bigger. Yes.
And I'm aware that the team has lacked a bit of a focus and some identity, and I think part of that, from my perspective, is still part of the same challenge. And I don't think it's just us. I think a lot of the Superliga teams have the same challenge now. Other teams like G2 and Fnatic also have the issue, and they just left the kind of tier 2, the EU kind of stuff in total. But I'm not hearing from our people, okay, or even from the fans, like something that would be an outcome that we should be focusing on, that we should just do. That's the outcome that you want, okay?
Okay.
And I think, I'm open to ideas in that kind of a thing, but I don't think that there is any outcome that will make more than, let's say, 30% of the fans happy. So if you do this outcome, this 30% will be happy, and then the other 70%, because there's more than two options. There's like three, you could do three different things. If you have three different things, then 1/3 of the people will be happy, but the other 2/3 will be unhappy. Right?
It's impossible to keep everybody happy.
And so you have to kind of figure that out for yourself first, okay? And even inside, we have three different things, and no matter what you choose, 2/3 of the people are going to be unhappy.
Definitely,
right?
yes.
And so look, I'm open to ideas. I think Superliga is an important part of what we do. Okay, I know that there's been some struggles with the tier 2 systems. I think there's viewership issues. Frankly, the entire ecosystem is in a very difficult position, but I think it is critical to the future of League of Legends, for sure for the future of Spanish League of Legends, to have a strong and vibrant tier 2 system. And I think right now we don't have that. I think we have to rethink what that, and by tier 2, I mean tier 2 to LEC, as opposed to tier 2 down here. I think you need to have a Superliga. I think you have to get Superliga working properly, okay? And once we have Superliga working properly, then KOI will be one of the best teams in that system. Okay, but right now, we want to be the best team in a system that we're not completely sure of, okay, with a strategy that we're not completely bought into, and a plan that kind of keeps changing. And I take responsibility for that. At the end of the day, like, you know, if I basically say, this is what we're doing, everybody get online, this is the plan, it will happen. Okay?
Yeah.
But I don't know what that plan is.
Yeah, it's kind of shady, no?
Yeah.
As of right
So
now.
I look. There's a lot of people out there. I know that you all have ideas. I sometimes get the ideas myself. Just understand that for, you know, every idea, there's other ideas that you're not doing. Okay, but there's also different people that disagree. So if we just want to develop the best young talent, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it would be like full Spanish. You know, develop the best talent. You know, that has a lot of risks, right? Because
A lot, yes.
yes, okay, and maybe the team is not very good, and are the people going to support a team of young people that aren't very good? And if you put too many young people together in that kind of system, in the KOI social media bubble, okay, will they be shit on? Are they going to basically have, like, you know, what does that mean? Okay, I can tell you that when we were doing Mad Lions, one of the views there was that the academy team should not be like a feeder team to the LEC team, right? The idea was more like what G2 is thinking, okay, but which is why they got rid of their thing, which is, you know, most of the players that we want will play for us because we're a good team. Okay, Mad Lions was like that. KOI is even more like that. Okay, so if the best players in Europe, from no matter what team that they're in, will choose to play for you, then you don't have to have your own feeder team. You will just basically take a look at the entire EU and say, who are the best players in all of the region, okay? And we will take the best of the best and put them on our team over here because they will love to play for our team. We always do well. We always make worlds, okay?
Yeah.
I think that was the view that we had before, which then made it less important for this team over here to have the best players, right? And I still think that's true. But on the other hand, is the Superliga team, and this is kind of my view a little bit, maybe the Superliga team should be its own thing, okay? It's not, like, it exists for the sake of having the best team in the Spanish league over here in the Superliga, okay? And it may be a path for the players to go to Movistar KOI, or maybe not, okay? But what you want to do is you want to be just the best team in Spain, give another kind of thing for all of the fans to cheer for, okay? Again, that requires a different strategy from the other two. Now there's a fourth one, which is what Kendrill did with Los Ratones, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, like, maybe you have like a streamer team, okay? And you put together some boomer players who are still very good,
Yeah.
right? You know, who are going to co-stream. I mean, that's a whole different model. And I can tell you, I was looking at that thinking, we could do this. You know, we could do this.
You could?
You know, we could.
Any names in mind?
No, I don't have any names in mind. I have some names in mind, but none that I would share. But I don't know, like, is that, look, and again, maybe you guys can give me some feedback. I appreciate feedback from everybody out there. And I don't want to obviously scare any of our existing players that we're going to go do something different. Okay?
Yeah, of course.
This is just the boss, you know, talking openly.
But you could do that. I mean, of course you could.
I could, but I haven't thought enough about it to know whether that's the path to do it. But what I'm saying is that there's 4 different models for the team.
Yeah.
Okay? And what I'm saying is that no matter which one you choose, most of the people will be oppose it. Okay? So you will not make most of the people happy no matter what you're doing. And maybe that's better than what we did last split, which is making nobody happy. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe making some people happy is better than making nobody happy.
Yeah. Some people complain a lot about this last year. The fact that you got like the best players possibly you can and still fail.
Yeah.
And it's like,
It's all the time.
But it will happen all the time, exactly, yeah, and no matter what you do. Okay, so last question about the Mad Lions, and I know this will be also a little bit moving for you, because I know how much you appreciated Mac.
Yeah.
And the fact that you had to say, look, Mac, this has to happen.
Yeah.
How can you tell us through that?
I can tell you some of it. Let me just.
I mean,
before
not all of it, of
Before I
course.
go to that, let me just talk a little bit about Mad Lions, okay?
Sure.
Because I think you know, we lost Mac and that kind of stuff over there, but we also lost Mad Lions. Okay, in terms of the brand,
Yeah.
you know, that brand was very close to all of us. I think I think we did a great job with the team and the brand and how we ran it. And we had Jorge, of course, and Ricardo, who you know, kind of started it up, and we had a great group of people that we all kind of worked together. Only a few of them that are still with us now, right?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, you don't have to, you know, like everything that you do if you're basically kind of continuing to move things forward in a direction that, you know, creates a better business and a better business model. But I will say that, you know, there was a lot of difficult decisions that had to be made around that time, and obviously the future of Mad Lions was a big one there, and we made that decision because at the end of the day, we need one brand for everything. And, you know, when you take a look, and I'm talking about it also in North America, right, and in other regions that we're in, you know, you have to go to the point where you have one brand so that everybody can understand, you know, what the team is about, what the organization is about, without confusion as to knowing what the corporate structure of overactive media is and what their holdings are. Okay, so I think you want to be a Koi fan, you should be a Koi fan, and all the teams should be one name. Okay, and so, I mean, obviously the Koi name was, you know, the name to go with. I mean, I think it was a no-brainer over there. So we, you know, we knew that we were going to go in that direction, and we did it in two steps. You know, we did Mad Lions, Koi first, for a number of reasons, both with Riot and with other people. I think that was the right way to do it because there was a Koi before, okay? And so I didn't want to lose the history of Mad Lions, okay?
Right.
And take on the history of Old Koi, which was Rogue, okay?
Yeah.
And going as Mad Lions Koi for a year confirmed that this is, you know, the legacy of this team is not the legacy of the previous Rogue team. It is the legacy of the previous Mad Lions team, okay? And so by doing that in a step, we locked in our history as that history, okay? And that was important to me for all of the people that helped to build that history, right? And for those fans that were Mad Lions, I did get some hate mail, believe it or not, from people basically saying, you know, I love that brand, I love that team, and you've destroyed it. You know, not every decision is an easy decision. I would make that decision again, but I'm glad of the way that we did it, to kind of do it in a bit of a step to make sure that the Mad Lions component, you know, was the key component of the future. I want that legacy. Like Mad Lions was an extreme, next to G2, it's the next most successful team in LEC.
You wouldn't say Fnatic is not?
How many championships?
Right.
At the end of the day, you have
right.
to win, okay?
Right.
So, sorry, Fnatic, okay, but you know, no, I think you have to have. I measure it by two things: how many championships and how many worlds have you gone to? Okay, and since the LEC started, okay, there is only one team in the LEC that has won championships and never missed a world championship. Okay. G2 missed in 2021, and they've won many more championships than we have, okay? And Fnatic has made every world, but they've never won a championship, okay? Mm-hmm. So, look, maybe those are little things, but I measure those things, okay? And we also made it, look, nobody thought we were going to make it. Everybody thought we were going to be shit last year as Mad Lions Koi, and there we were yet again at the World Championship, okay? We will always find a way. But, you know, when you're talking about Mac, that was... There's two parts of it, okay, with you know, kind of the Mad Lions team, I would say, and the coaching staff that we had over there. First of all, you know, I think for what we were doing as Mad Lions, that was the best team that we could have possibly had, okay, for the identity that we wanted and the budget that we wanted and the fan base that we wanted. Mac and Pad and Cass, who was also there for a period of time, you know, and then before that, Peter Dunn. Were probably the best team you could have. But with, you know, the change that we were making, you know, Melsat and IBAI, in particular IBAI, had, you know, kind of a different direction that he wanted to go in. And we, IBAI and I, had a lot of discussions about the future of the team. Like, we didn't just basically agree. I didn't just say to IBAI, okay, whatever you want, you get. It was, I am like the holder of the Mad Lions legacy, and you're the holder of the Koi legacy, and, how do we blend those identities together? And I said to IBAI, we were actually in Barcelona, and we were having a good discussion, and I said to him, look, you want to do this plan, okay, with this rookie team, but we have never missed Worlds, okay? And my concern is we're going to put this team together, it's going to be shit, okay? And that, like, whatever goodwill that we have, it's going to be ruined because we basically put together a bad team, okay? And he looked me in the eye and he said, I will give you, and he said a really big sum of dollars.
I think he said it on the stream.
Did he?
Once. I think, I think.
I don't know if he said it or not, but I won't say the amount because it was a big amount. And he said, if we don't make it to
No, actually, you said it on Twitter, I think. And he said, yes, I did that, yes.
Yes, he did that, yes. Okay, but I don't know if I mentioned the amount, but it doesn't matter. It was a big amount, okay? And I said, I said, what? He said, I will give you this if we don't make it. And then I thought about it for a second, and then I thought, no, IBAI, like, we're partners here. Like, you're not going to, I'm not going to do this,
right.
And hope, okay, I hope that we put together the team and that you fail so you can give me a lot of money. Okay, that's not the way. Like, if we do this, and I would say this again to our coaches and to everybody else, like, we could have disagreements, but when we agree, we are all in it together, okay? And at the end of it all, I kind of, I was flying back home. I didn't agree yet, but I was flying back home, and I was thinking, if we're going to make a change, if we're going to take a big chance, this is the time that we're going to have to do it. And if we don't make this change right now, we're going to be coy, but we're still going to be Mad Lions, okay? And in the way that we run everything in the background, the identity, it's going to be Mad Lions, coy, and eventually it has to just be like a different identity.
Right.
And I also talked to Melsat, and he is a very impressive person, I would say, right? So my biggest concern is I thought we had the best coaches and the best scouts, okay, with Mac and Pat and Cass at the time. And I didn't know much about Melsat. I think he was with riders, and so I could talk to Fleur and those guys to kind of get an idea. The fact that most of these players were with riders made it easier because we had another group that could tell me, and IBAI, frankly, like, what their personalities were like, what they thought. And we, basically, he convinced me. He was like, I bought into the fact that this guy could do what he could do. And then...
he did?
And then, yeah, he did. And then I had to go and talk to Mac. So, first of all, that was a very difficult kind of decision to make because Mac, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, Mac didn't go to Worlds because he had a baby daughter at the time. And this came from out of the blue. It wasn't like, IBAI and I were not talking about doing this for 6 months. It kind of came together kind of at the end. But I will say that what I told Mac was that we would support him in whatever amount of time he wanted. Okay, so if he wants to stay with us, and we will pay him. If he wants a different role for a period of time, to kind of help manage some of our other kind of things, put the structure together to properly run some of our other teams, because he knows how to put the pieces together very well. If he, needs whatever the support that he needs, okay, we will give him whatever he wants, okay. And
that's nice.
And and the same was true for...
You did the same for me. Do you remember before we hugged? You said,
yes, I did.
If you don't have any place to go, we will pay you until you want.
Yes, yeah. And look, I think that's like, people are not something that you just kind of use and then discard when they're no longer there. Okay, there are other people that you basically have relationships with, and you want to preserve those. I like, it's not always appreciated back. Like, and I don't really know for sure whether those guys, kind of hate me or like, I don't, I've seen some mixed comments sometimes on social media about some of the stuff. I don't blame them if they're not, kind of happy with the decision that I had to make. But look, at the end of the day, okay, all I do is I think about the fact that when we're negotiating their contract, and this is true about players, okay, as much as you love them, as much as they're there and they're part of the team, when it's time to talk about their contracts, they bring in these agents who are vultures, okay? And then it doesn't matter about your past, your history, your friends, your org, all of that stuff. None of that, they don't care. It's all about, how much money you're going to pay me.
And for how long? Yeah.
It becomes very transactional.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are basically looking for stuff, okay? And then when you're looking to make a change, everybody talks about the emotional impact. Okay?
Yeah.
And look, I do feel the emotional impact. I wish that they felt that emotional impact back when we're talking about their contracts.
Right.
Okay. So again, I think we did the right thing. I will say that to break those contracts for our players and for our coaches and all of that kind of stuff, it cost us many millions of dollars. Okay?
Right.
It wasn't just we're going to go with this team. I have another team that is already signed. Okay, with players and coaches that are there, that we're going to support no matter what, and we had to pay them. And I will say one more thing. One of the things that helps them get their jobs, I think it helps them, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it did help them, is that we agreed to cover most of their salary even if they got signed by another team, okay? So usually when you get signed by another team, I stop paying you and the other team starts paying you, okay? So I save the money, okay? Mm-hmm. But because it was late in the season, we agreed that we would continue to pay so that the new team would only have to pay a fraction of their salary. So for most of those guys for last year, I was paying their salary and I was paying our salary, okay?
Wow.
To help them kind of go to their new positions, right? And so I think, look, I think we did everything that we could. I have a great deal of respect for Mac and all the other people that we worked there. I think Mac is still, one of the best coaches in the league. I wish him success with Vitality, but not too much success. And I think he brought in Niski now. I have rumors. I don't think it's been announced. But the other interesting thing is, the team that Mac put together at Vitality is the team that we would have put together at Mac. Okay? And so it kind of gives you like an interesting kind of situation, because the alternative to what we did was the Vitality team.
Right.
Okay? And so I could see both outcomes, okay? And IBAI was right, okay? IBAI was not only right, maybe not the bet, okay? But his gut feel for the direction of the team, Melthat, the way that we should build it, the young blood that are coming in, the way that connects to our community, okay? I would not have made that decision if it wasn't for IBAI's sense of kind of the community and the players and that kind of stuff. I've got a lot of respect for him, and it's even better because I could see what the alternative was.
It's even better, yes. Yeah. I think my personal opinion on how this interview is going is, and if you allow me to give you my opinion, is that you should do more interviews like this, because I think you're telling here stuff that the fans didn't know.
Yeah.
And I think for you to build the relationship with the fans of Koi, this is gold. Yeah. I mean, they could understand now much better who you are and what you saw at the moment of making those decisions. And they were not, they would appreciate more the fact that they're now having the team that they have, you know?
Yeah. Look, I think that's a good idea. There's only so many times you can tell the same stories, but look, if
new ones will come up.
Yeah. Look, I'm happy to do something more. Like, again, I've been thinking of maybe we should be doing like a podcast, like, every month, every couple of weeks or whatever, where we could talk about, this kind of stuff. But I don't want it to be, again, I was talking with some of our members of the team of what would that podcast look like. And I said, look, I don't want it to be a podcast about, the business decisions. I don't think our audience cares about the business decisions as much as they care about the team decisions, the player decisions. And I'm not the one that makes every single decision that goes down, but I am the person at the end of the day that has all of the context in terms of what went into making that decision, maybe that context is something that you can kind of share over, So.
Sure, makes sense. Let's jump into the final part, which is the pure Koi questions.
Yeah.
A lot of questions
Okay,
about the.
I don't know how long you want your podcast to be, but I've got.
Well, this is not gonna be that long. Depends on the answers too, you know.
My are too long.
Well, but it explains a lot.
Okay.
A lot of questions about the Game Changers division.
Yeah.
Is that coming back? Well, people were saying that they knew why it's not longer in the organization, but is it coming back?
Why is it no longer? What do they think?
Well, some of them think it's just not like it's just you guys paying and paying and paying, but not getting anything back.
Yeah.
So that's what people think, you know.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's a business too, you know.
Yeah.
But is it coming back? Is any plans for Game Changers? As long as Counter-Strike 2, there were for riders, for example, it was the biggest division, and you know, and a lot of people are asking about Counter-Strike and the Game Changers. What are the plans on this?
Okay, so first of all, I think Game Changers is an important part of what we do. But there's, for us, again, I don't know how the other teams do it. For us, there's no way for us to make money. Okay, so what you're doing in Game Changers is you're doing it for the community and for that, and you're deciding you're going to lose a certain amount of money for the benefit of the community. And so that then becomes like a budget issue versus like, okay, so where do I want to spend the money versus, you know, the different kind of things that we're doing. And I think, you know, we also had like a League of Legends Game Changers that they were talking about, you know, the Valorant Game Changers. And, you know, there's a couple of different things. First of all, they're never, I didn't get like enough clarity from, you know, the powers up at Riot in terms of what the longer term plan is, like for us to basically invest in it. Like what happens at, like, are you going to do like a mini version of the LEC where you can have like partnerships and we could at least have some guaranteed revenue coming back from whatever the stuff is. Maybe you have like a special type of skin for the female Game Changers that you know, like what is the path for, like it begins with the publisher, and what is the path from you to help to build and monetize that ecosystem? And we're not hearing good enough answers from the publisher. And when we look at a game to be involved, it starts with the commitment of the publisher to it. And while, you know, Game Changers for women's esports, you know, Riot seems to be doing more than everybody else. They're not doing, I think, at the level that makes it viable. Okay. Right. And so the only way that it makes it viable is the charity of the teams that are willing to lose a certain amount of money for it, right? And some teams are willing to do more than others, right? And we also have the challenge, I think, in KOI of having, you know, the special and unique relationship with the Spanish community. And so, you know, to be, especially for Valorant, the level of talent for the Spanish female players is not at a level that is competitive with the best teams in Europe, right? So not only are you going to be, if you're going to be a mostly Spanish squad, not only are you going to be not really in a position where you can make any money on it, you're losing money, but you're also not in a position where you can build a roster that is competitive with the best rosters. Right. So not only are you going to lose money, you're probably not going to be that good, okay? Right. And then, so what is the path out of that, okay? You can continue to do that, which, again, I don't think benefits anybody, right? Because you lose money, you don't have a good team, and the fans don't feel excited, okay? Or you can go with a less Spanish team, right? And be a better team, but without the Spanish kind of background. Mm-hmm. And is that what Game Changers should be? Like, are we looking to develop, again, it goes back to what we were talking about SUPERLIGA. Yes. Are we looking to develop that tier of the best Spanish players, many of whom, if they had the opportunity in 4 or 5 years, okay, of developing in a competitive environment, could become very good, okay? But in the way that it's structured, you don't have 4 or 5 years to find some of these 14, 15, 16-year-old girls, give them a safe environment to become among the best in the world, develop them, you know, against some guaranteed revenue back from the publisher into, you know, something that could be sit beside, you know, the kind of the main leagues. And again, I don't think there is a plan in place that makes it clear what we should be spending our money on. And to be honest, maybe the money is better used donating it to a women's shelter or something else rather than developing it in a system where no matter how much you spend on the best young Spanish talent, they're never going to become good enough in a system that is long-term enough for them to be able to basically make a living.
Right. Okay.
And so that's the problem that I have with Game Changers. I think we want to see that fixed again, and then we can kind of decide to go back in. But for right now, I'm not hearing a plan from anybody that basically says this is the path to success.
But the moment you hear a plan
I do not. If I hear a plan, we are very open.
Okay.
I am committed to basically developing, women's gaming, women's esports. I think, we can talk a little bit about the Koi brand and how I see that kind of growing. But I think the Koi brand, no matter what we do, will be fundamentally a Spanish brand. Okay, and for many of our European things, I think. I'm not going to guarantee that we will always have a mostly Spanish roster. It really depends on a whole bunch of different factors. But, our relationship with our history in Spain is going to be very important. And I don't, when the plan is that we can build a very good team, but give up our Spanish players, especially for tier 2 things, I've really struggled about that.
Right. Okay.
So.
Okay. And the same question goes for, is Counter-Strike a dead end for you guys?
No.
Maybe you cannot share much, but...
No, I can share whatever I know. Look, what you're hearing a lot from me right now is basically, if I don't know what the end game is, okay, I'm not willing to just lose money without knowing why we're spending that money.
Okay.
Okay? And so... And so, that was basically my answer for Game Changers. I don't know what the purpose is, what we're trying to accomplish by just losing money in it. Okay. For Counter-Strike, let me just begin with the way that I see our teams, where we prioritize our investment, okay? And the top 3 teams that we have are the LEC team, the VCT team, and the Call of Duty team, across the overactive kind of stuff, okay? Those are the 3 teams that... For esports, in terms of the revenue, they make us most of our money.
Okay.
So we want to have, we always want to have a very strong LEC team. Okay. I know we're struggling in VCT, but that is a priority. Okay. And Call of Duty, we're always kind of in the mix as well. So those are the 3 teams. After that, for the benefit of the overall business that we run. Okay. And if we don't have a business that is healthy and can be kind of moving towards profitability, then the entire future of the company is at risk. So we have to make some decisions in terms of what is for the benefit of our company to survive long term. And the next 2 ones are I would say Esports World Cup, okay, which is controversial from some people, okay, but that is an area where I think we can really bring our teams together, and it can help us expand into other games that might not be. Again, when we're talking about the publishers providing the support, the publishers might not provide enough support in some of those games for us to want to be in them. But with the support of Esports World Cup, it now makes sense for us to be in that game.
Right.
Okay. So there's also an opportunity for Esports World Cup to be profitable for us. Okay. So that gives us an opportunity to expand the number of games that we're in. Okay. To expand the Koi brand and to make money. Okay, and so I think at the balance of all of that, that needs to be a priority that we look at closely. Okay. And then the next one is Counter-Strike. Okay, Counter-Strike is one of the big games in esports, and it's a game that we should be in, I think, and we will come back when we hear a plan that makes sense. And again, maybe this is, I wasn't actually kind of thinking about it at the time, but many of these things are the same issue, okay? Which is, what do you want that identity of that Counter-Strike team to be? And we have historically, Riders has historically gone with like an Iberian team. And, you know, as much as I love that idea, it can never grow to make money, okay? And so last year we made a major, and so it was successful, but the way that the Counter-Strike ecosystem works is that once you're successful once, the demand from players and agents and, you know, the share that they want of their skins that you basically sell, all of that goes up, okay? but you don't have a guarantee that that team is going to be able to make the majors again. You don't even know whether Valve is going to put the same money into the skins the next year, right? And so what happens in Counter-Strike, more so than any other game, is that the most, like 90% of the risk goes on the team, okay? So we have to pay the buyouts for the players. We have to provide the coaching and the living expenses and all of that stuff. We spend all of that money up front, okay? And then the players get almost all of the benefits, okay? And the better the player, okay, not only do their salaries go up, but then they take all of the money from the skins, okay? So you make it to the majors and you don't even make most of the money from the skins, okay? And so in order to be like viable, you have to have a huge betting contract, because all of the money that you make from Counter-Strike, okay, all of the money that you make all goes to the players and then more, okay? So you're automatically probably losing money from Counter-Strike, okay? So unless you have a lot of sponsors to feed the difference, and I'm talking about like an expensive team, okay? If you just have like an Iberian team, it probably doesn't make any difference, but then you probably don't make majors and you probably don't make the money anyway, okay? But if you have like a big team, like any of the big teams out there, they probably have a betting sponsor or a crypto sponsor, okay? And a betting sponsor in Counter-Strike could be like $5 million, okay?
Easy.
And so with the $5 million plus some additional sponsorships, okay, now it starts to make a little bit of sense, okay? And now you can start spending money on the players, and you do that. And all of the top teams have that kind of a structure, or betting, or crypto, or both, okay? And then a lot of them are also kind of Eastern European, Russian, you know, those kind of players over there tend to cost less, but they speak Russian, so you have to be a Russian team. And I don't know if I want to have like a Koi team that is a Russian team, okay? So those are challenges too. So when you look at the economics of Counter-Strike, you know, you need to have, I think, a big sponsor that is in the betting space, okay? But to get that sponsor, first of all, I don't know that I want a big betting sponsor, okay? And that is not something that we have decided is good for the Koi brand, okay? But even if we did, right, and even if we said, okay, look, at the end of the day, this is a business, and sometimes we have to make decisions that are not, you know, great, okay? But even if we have a betting sponsor, you know, maybe we can kind of limit the kinds of activations we do, especially in Spain, right?
Okay.
So let's just kind of figure that kind of out. Let's say that makes sense. In order for me to get a $5 million a year betting sponsor, I have to build a team and probably lose a couple of $1 million a year, okay?
On the way, yeah.
To become big enough to be able to get the sponsor to leave somebody else to come over to us, okay? And so then the question is, you know, I have to spend potentially millions of dollars buying the team, okay? Then I have to give all of the benefits to the players for the skins and for everything for as long as I can survive to get a betting sponsor to come back to somehow come in and make me kind of money.
Okay.
And we will figure that out, okay? Because I think we can figure that out in different ways. But until we figure that out, I said to our team, like, and this was a plan that I asked them to figure out for 6 months, okay, before we decided to leave the Counter-Strike system. I said to our people, and I said, I want a plan for Counter-Strike, you know, that makes sense for us, okay? So go back and come up with a plan, and 6 months later, I didn't have a plan that made sense for and I got to explain some of the challenges there. And when we didn't have a plan, I'm not going to just go out and spend money without a plan. It's a waste of money. And one of the reasons that so much of the esports winter, like so many companies are failing in esports, is they go forward with wishful thinking without a plan. And I'm just not going to do that.
It could be great, yes, okay.
It could be great. We'll figure it out and then we'll come back.
Yeah. Okay, so it's on the table that there could be a team of CSGO if
I would
everything...
like to have a CS2. I want to have LEC, VCT, Call of Duty, okay? I want to have Counter-Strike, okay? In a fully formed version of Ikoi, where we're going, okay? So those 4 teams would be our 4 key esports, okay? And then we would have a 5th category of esports teams that are around the Esports World Cup, okay? So those could be, you know, we announced the Free Fire team in Mexico. There's going to be other announcements kind of over there. These are not just like one-off teams that we just basically say we're just going to do it for Esports World Cup. These would be long-term ideas where we have the teams for, you know, 3, 4, 5 years. but they only make sense because of the deals that we make with the publisher, plus the money that comes from Esports World Cup. And if it didn't come from Esports World Cup, we wouldn't be able to make that business make sense.
Makes sense.
But if you want to have like an organization that has 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different games, that are all doing well, that is a company that is kind of bigger than it is now, that has games that are being played 24 hours a day in different parts of the world. If you want to have that kind of an organization, that's the way that you do it. Okay, your 3 big ones plus Counter-Strike, make that work. Okay, and then use the Esports World Cup to get you another 3, 4, 5 teams. Okay, now you've got 9 or 10 teams. Now you're profitable, and now you're basically building fandom around the world.
Okay, that was another question that a lot of people are asking themselves, as obviously Koi fans, which is most people, I want to say most, I would say 95, 90% of people do not want bets on as a sponsor, which is understandable. But then stuff changes when it comes to the Esports World Cup, when it's like, it's a little bit different, but it's also very controversial.
Yeah.
What's the stand on Koi, of Koi about this?
About which?
About the Esports World Cup.
Well, I just told you, I think Esports World Cup is on balance good for the esports industry. Okay, and look, we operate in a lot of different countries, and Tencent is owned by China, and you've got, look, even with it, I was joking about the United States, threatening to take over Canada or Greenland or Panama or whatever they're talking about.
Sure.
Okay, there's a lot of politics that happens a lot of around the world, and even in Spain, you have like your own things. I know that there's political issues that we have in Canada. All of these things, Saudi Arabia, Middle East, world's problems going back thousands of years, probably in that region.
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't think. I think we can take action that is not just like virtue signaling action. Okay, like if you want to support women, okay, the best way to support women is to donate some money or your time or volunteer at a women's shelter. Do something that is active, that will help women where you live, okay? And if you think that you are helping whatever kind of, minority out there by protesting this government doing that and that government over there, first of all, we have very little impact on that. Okay? It's not going to make any change other than make you feel good, okay? When with a little bit more effort, you can actually go and make real change. So that's my kind of philosophy. And I can tell you, on Saturday, I'm going to go back to Toronto on Friday. On Saturday, I won't take pictures of this because it's kind of a different thing, but I will be out there protesting against, the treatment of women in the Canadian healthcare system. Along with my wife and my son, we're part of a foundation that my wife has set up that basically advocates for the protection of women, especially in there's unequal treatment of women in the healthcare system.
Wow.
Okay, probably around the world, I would say. But I will be out there with signs, okay, supporting my wife and my daughter, but women in general, okay? And those kinds of things, and you're not going to see them on my like social media feed, saying, look at how great I am, okay? Those are just the things that I do because I think I can make a meaningful change, in my own way, okay? And I honestly think that is the way, if you want to make change, get active, get involved. With Esports World Cup, the biggest funders of esports right now, the biggest markets are, China basically, and the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. And I don't have to agree with everything that they do for us to do our part, okay, to engage our fans, do our role and bring entertainment to our audience, which is ultimately what we are. We're an entertainment platform. And I think I want to focus on doing that. Again, I'm not, kind of thinking that everything goes, right? But I do think about, what can be the benefit ultimately to our community. And I think Esports World Cup, the way that it's structured, the way that it's put together, I think can do more good for our ecosystem and our fans than whatever not being a part of it could do to hurt it.
Right.
Okay? I think betting is different because betting is, I am, by having the sponsor on our jersey, I am encouraging our fans to go and spend their money gambling. Okay, and
Right.
I don't gamble myself. I think it's a loser's game. I think if you're going to be betting, you're going to be losing more than you're winning. You will lose money in betting. Okay, and the way that most betting is structured is to give you the impression that you're going to win. Okay, you're going to win more than you're going to lose. But the industry cannot make sense if that is true. Okay, and I feel uncomfortable, conflicted, representing to our fans that this is a good idea without saying to them at the same time, which I think sponsors would not agree with, that, hey, if you're going to do this, you're going to lose money.
Right.
Okay? And look, I know how hard it is for, us to basically go to our fans and say, pay $100 for this jersey. They say, $100 for the jersey, why? Okay, but at the end of the day, if you spend $100 for the jersey, you have the jersey, you can watch our games, you get the entertainment, you get the jersey, and you get the fun, and you get the community, okay? I would rather, and you do us much better by spending $100 on the stuff that we do than for me to tell you to go and lose $100 on betting, okay, because somehow you think that you're going to win. I think there's a bit of a fraud that goes into that, okay?
Okay.
And so for me, betting is a tougher thing than Esports World Cup, and for all of the reasons that I said. So, look, you can agree or you can disagree. I think, at the end of the day, I'm in a difficult position where we have to make these decisions. I can tell you that, we have looked at it closely. Like, we don't, we're not like just money grubbing people that basically go out and do whatever we can to give whatever dollar we can. I think we're very good for the community. We do a lot of things that don't necessarily make us money because we think that they're good for the community. I honestly think that we can work, with the foundation, okay, to make a positive change for esports. And maybe we can make a positive change for Saudi Arabia as well, okay? And all of the indications that we see from the kingdom over there is that, they want to move closer to Western values, but they have their own challenges over there about switching to Western values. And, again, I don't want to necessarily get into the geopolitics, but there isn't, in my view, there isn't an answer for that part of the world where they become like us soon, okay? The option in the short term is that they are the way that they are, okay, but we can kind of engage with them and make them maybe slowly change, or they become closer to Iran, okay, the way that they are over there, okay?
Okay.
And I think by engaging with them, okay, and showing them, kind of our way of life and participating in what they're doing, and they're open to that, I think we are pushing them closer to us and further away from a worse outcome. Okay, so anyway, I do think about these things.
But your job is to think about the big picture stuff. That's, I think, very clear. And sometimes people won't understand, but you have to. That's your job to think about the big picture stuff. Another question, super repeated question, is about the merchandising of Koi. It's about what happened, why there's not more merchandising of Koi, and the people from South America, Mexico, stuff, places like that, they're asking why not like a different price for us, because only the shipping is a lot of money. You guys have fans all over the world. So what is there a plan?
I was just actually in a meeting about that plan.
Wow.
So we do have plans. Okay. They take a little bit of time because we are a big global company now, and we have partnerships with. We've got Kappa, for example. We've got different kinds of things that it takes some time to kind of think about, how to do the business issues for it, and moving into global merchandising is not. It takes some thought, okay? Like, we're not Nike, okay? I don't have people here that have all of this stuff.
Right.
You have to kind of figure out, what people do you need? There's a lot of details that go. There's inventory. There's the shipping. There's the different, countries that you deal with. There's a whole bunch of different factors that you deal with. And one of the challenges is that I think if we announce something in a bigger way, it will be very big, okay? But we won't be able to do the stuff in the background to make sure that everybody's happy with the quality, the timing, the shipment, and all of that kind of stuff. And rather than go out and then, have to spend all of our time apologizing to people. I would rather understand all the details first and then get it right and then do it properly. So we're working on that. I think it may take a little bit of time. I hope that we're going to be in a better position to start doing more merchandise this year, okay, and then have a better global plan for 2026. Latin America, and I have a lot of people that engage with me from Latin America as well. Yeah, we have to figure out Spain first, okay? We still haven't figured out Spain and Europe, okay? And then I think we will kind of turn our attention over there. That is a much more difficult market than Europe is.
Yes,
right?
it is.
And if we had like an EU of LATAM where, they all have one, kind of common area, it would make it a lot easier, but that's not the reality.
Mm-hmm.
And, the currencies are all different too. Even if they're called peso, like the Mexican one is different from the Argentinian one. They have
Yes.
different exchange rates, right?
Yes.
And then you have two different free trade zones there, right? Not everybody is a member of both, and some are a member of this group and some are a member of that group. So you have to figure out the rules for each of those groups, okay? And then the shipping, even if you're in Colombia, like the shipping from Colombia may be very expensive, maybe it's not Colombia, but they also have tariffs, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to figure out, like if you're shipping it from this place and you're shipping it to Argentina, maybe they put a tax on Argentina, and then maybe the cost is still as high from going local. So all of these issues.
It's crazy.
And, we are a small company, okay? We're based mostly here. We've got some people in Canada, and, we're trying to move into Mexico a little bit now with the Free Fire team. But, man, that is a lot of stuff to do.
It is a lot of stuff,
so
yes.
I think ideally what I would find out for Latin America is if we could find a group, or even maybe like a smaller company that we could buy. Okay, I'd be interested in buying. Maybe it's like a digital agency, or maybe it's somebody in that market. Maybe it's in Mexico. I've looked a little bit of Mexico as well. Like what you need to do is you need to basically bring the expertise on that for people that understand that market, because I'm not going to have the people from Spain trying to figure out Mexico or Latin America, right?
Right.
So you can either go out there and start hiring people, or you can find like a small business that is operating over there, buy the whole business, bring the people in, and then say, okay, look, your challenge now is to also figure out how we're going to grow in this market. And that's something that is on my radar screen. I need to know a little bit more about the markets down there and who does what. But if you have good ideas, send them to me and I'll take a look at them.
Bits and back, guys. Membership ID.
Yeah.
Like a membership for COE, for people to just actually become a member with their ID, with their, Is that something that you guys are thinking about too? Because this question was asked a lot too.
Okay. I think that is a great idea. Okay. I think we are looking at it. I think that when we announce it, it will be something fabulous.
When? So there's a plan? Okay, great.
I think we are looking at it, okay? I'm not going to announce it until I think it's going to be fabulous. But there are, kind of different components to how I would like to have that going. But if we can have a situation where we can make our fans, we can give them the benefits of being part of our community that they deserve, in the best way possible, I think that is something that we will do. We're looking at it.
Okay, great. I just have 3 more and we're done. This one could be a little bit more like, requires a longer answer, but it's about the alignment in between the LEC team and the Superliga team. This was asked, it's not like if there is an alignment, it's what's like, how does it work? Like, does Melsa just takes care of the LEC team and nothing else, and over here is a different story? And also, is there a plan of putting or hiring a psychologist for the LEC team? Because right now, they don't have one.
I think we talked a little bit about this earlier when we were talking about just the various different, ways to do it. There is definitely oversight from the LEC team and the Superliga team, okay? And there's decisions that go back and forth, right? And they also share resources, right? So, while the psychologists and those types of people might not be here right now, they are over there, and they do kind of make time for the guys over here when they can, okay? And not everything has to necessarily be in person, but they do have, we have both the VCT and the LEC team over there, so it makes sense to keep the resources over there, but you could also kind of provide them over here as well via Zoom or whatever teams. So I don't know if we're going to bring somebody in directly here. I don't know that we're not going to. I'm just saying I haven't seen in front of me somebody saying one way or the other, let's do this. So that's not a decision that's made it to me yet. In terms of, again, the rest of it, I think we need to be clearer internally and then with our fans what we think the main purpose of the team is.
Okay.
And I think the LEC team will always have some oversight to it, okay? But I'm waiting to kind of get to the point where we're basically saying this is the purpose of the team, and hopefully we will be. I think last year we focused. We still were focusing for this year on the LEC team more than the Superliga team, I would say. I think we are going, we're kind of in the second split here, starting up for Superliga. We're going to finish off 2025. I think I'm very optimistic about the team kind of coming back together again for the split two. And then I think before we start the next season in 2026, I think we have to have not only internal alignment on what, the purpose is. If we know what the purpose is for sure and can narrow it down, this is what your primary objective is, then we can better understand what the LEC team role is there, okay? And then we can also better communicate to fans, this is what we're doing, okay? And I'll take responsibility for not having very clear messaging on that. The reason we don't have very clear messaging on that is because we don't have a complete understanding or agreement.
Okay, sounds good. The most repeated question, is Toronto Ultra going to be called KOE at some point?
Okay, let me kind of put that into two different groups. Okay, so earlier on I was talking about Mad Lions and about how it just makes sense to be one team. Okay, and so that applies to Toronto Ultra as well, right? I mean, if we got rid of Mad Lions, why don't you get rid of Toronto Ultra? Like thinking that way is consistent. Okay, if it made sense for this, why doesn't it make sense for that?
Right.
The main challenge for not doing that, okay, and I would do that, I think it makes sense to do it, okay. The reason that it may be moving slower to do it is, the Toronto Ultra as a team is very successful and has its own revenue, okay, and generates its own sponsorships, okay. It's not like, the teams over in Spain where we have like one group of sponsors that kind of supports everything. Okay?
Right.
We have all of that, and then we have a different group of sponsors over there that supports that team. Okay, and those sponsors are interested in reaching the Canadian market first and foremost. Okay, and so we have to just be very careful. What I want to do is I want to eventually have that be part of the KOE brand, but I want to keep all of those sponsors. Okay,
so it's not an easy task.
I have to figure out the best way to do that in a way that I don't scare the sponsors from thinking that this is no longer a team that cares about the market that they're sponsoring for, okay? But that it is an expansion of the global KOE brand.
Okay.
And in the best case, I want all of our, kind of Spanish community in Europe and in Latin America and anywhere else that we have fans to also support that team. And I know that a key barrier to supporting that team is they want it to be a KOE team, okay?
Right.
And so I hear that, but, if I make that a KOE team tomorrow, I think I lose all of my revenue that I get from those sponsors, and I don't think I get that from Spanish sponsors back, okay?
Right.
I think, they will say, okay, well, that's great. Now we have a Call of Duty team. For what we're paying you, we also want to be a sponsor over there, okay?
Right.
We're not going to pay you any more, but we also want that team. And so what that does is I end up losing the money that I'm making, okay? But I get the unified brand. And, or the alternative is to not have a unified brand and keep the team as it is. And what I want both. I want to keep some money, and I want to have a unified brand, and I'm going to figure that out. I think we've got a plan that we're going to be working on. I think it's very helpful because it will begin with the Esports World Cup, where we're going to play as Movistar KOI in the Esports World Cup for the Call of Duty team. That'll be the first introduction there for that team as a KOI team. I think all of the fans should, kind of lean in and support that team. And then maybe that's like a bit of a Trojan horse, right? Maybe I can kind of show our sponsors over there that being KOI benefits you. It doesn't take away from your audience in Canada. You still have the audience in Canada, but you also get the benefits over here, okay? And these are not esports people. They don't know KOI. Okay, I have to move them slowly. I have to explain to them over time. I have to not move so quickly that I scare them, okay? Right. And so what I've been trying to do in the meantime is I've been trying to introduce our KOI fans to the Toronto Ultra, which is why we brought the major over here, which is why I kind of talk a little bit more about it in terms of, the stuff that we do. I'm trying to introduce the team over here it's kind of like a dating thing. Hey, this is, right. This is somebody that might be interesting to you. Maybe I'm going to introduce you to them.
I have a friend that,
And then I go to our sponsors and I say, hey, right. We've got a lot of fans over here. Yeah. Look at how big this brand is, but it's not going to be scary. And then eventually we're going to put them together, and I think we'll get both. But I think our community and our company benefits from having sponsors not just in Spain, okay? I want to have sponsors, for Latin American teams. I want to basically move into that market. I think we could do better in more European sponsors over here. I think I can do better in North American sponsors over there. And I want to have everything, and I want to keep it.
I want it all.
I want it all.
As Freddie Mercury would say, yeah.
So I want it now, and I want it all. Maybe not now. I'm going to be patient, and I'll figure it out over time. But I think, right now we have every team is Movistar KOI, except for Toronto Ultra. Okay. Okay. And as time goes on, that becomes more and more difficult to do.
Makes sense. And the last question that I have, I got some questions from KOI fans about the content here in Spain. Obviously, the KOI stream, IBAI does his things, which is the greatest streamer of all time. Not only Spanish, he's pretty much the greatest of all time. And the KOI stream, now that you got Mellado, you got Canecro, you got these wonderful people that are doing a great job, and they do their own stuff. Is there plans to do more stuff? As is, for example, you guys had the DT, the Discutido Tranquilamente, which is, it wasn't like as everybody expected, but it could be better, like the podcast you mentioned before about you guys from here are actually giving like some messages to the fans and some content. Is there a plan about this?
Yeah, I think that's an important part of the overall plan, and that's another thing that I was talking about during my trip up here this week. Content is a big part of it. Look, I want everybody to kind of understand that it's been 13 months since we acquired riders, KOI, put everything together, and it's only been about a year, right?
Yes.
Right? And so the danger is trying to do too many things all at the same time. So if you'll notice, what we did is we kind of, from Game Changers, Counter-Strike, there's a few things that we went away from to do a little bit less, okay, so that we can improve the quality of what we're doing in our core things, okay, and then kind of expand once we build the base, okay. I think, merch is something that, you mentioned that we could improve on. I think we're looking on how to improve, the membership plan is something, again, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think content is another big opportunity for us, okay. It's among the biggest opportunities that we have, I think, as KOI, because of our special relationship with IBAI and then the other co-streamers that, he's been able to kind of help us put together. And with IBAI, let me say that IBAI is unquestionably the best, okay? And it took me a while to understand, especially if you're not Spanish, like what is, like, why is he so good, okay? And I with AI and all of that stuff that's had there, I actually went out. It was pretty expensive, and it probably wasn't worth the amount of money that I paid. But I paid like $500 for like an AI earbud, like that. Basically, when the stream is on, I just put my phone near the stream, and it translates the stream from Spanish to English to me.
Okay.
Okay. So it's better than reading it. Okay. It's not perfect. Okay. Maybe the best thing is for me to speak Spanish. But at least when the streams are on, any of our streams, I can actually be working. Like if I have to read it on a teleprompter, I have to look at the screen. Mm-hmm. If it's in the background, I can do other work and I can just hear it on everything. And so over the last, I would say 9 months, 10 months that I've been doing that, I've been listening to a lot of EBAI streams and I can much more appreciate what makes him so good. And like I could be wrong, and maybe you could kind of agree with me or tell me where I'm not wrong. But EBAI is like a masterful storyteller, okay? And he, it's hard to kind of understand that because he's so different at what he does than almost every other streamer, right? Because he weaves the stories and the passion that he shows and the way that he does it, okay, is a way that drags you in, okay, into what he's talking about and makes you feel connected to it, right? The way that I was explaining to my wife is that for young people, okay, for esports, like, EBAI is the Homer of like influencer stuff. Like it's not just a guy talking. It is like art. It's like the poetry of Homer back in ancient Greece. Okay, and Homer back then was telling like stories. Like it wasn't like the kinds of myths that we have now. It was just like stories that you kind of tell. Maybe the parents of the kids that were listening to like the Iliad or the Odyssey were basically saying, "Stop listening to that trash." That Homer was talking about, right? And so. Those are the stories that Homer was telling. And what EBAI does is for our young people, especially the Spanish-speaking young people, he doesn't just tell you what's happening. He tells you in a way that builds you into the story, right? And even with the stuff, like when we were doing the things and the thing about the Phoenix, like he just, like, only he thinks that stuff, right? And it becomes the narrative, right? And EBAI is just, again, he's masterful at doing that. And I think you have to understand that EBAI is, an artist, okay? And he has a view to his art, and he is going to be pure to his art, okay? And I think in some of the previous things that he, ran into trouble or disagreements with, maybe the people that he was with before, I think they didn't understand him as an artist. They understood him as a product. And EBAI will never be a product, okay? He does what he does because he's passionate about it, and he will do what he does. And if it fits in with what you want, that's fine. But he is not the kind of person that you're going to say, "Hey, come over here and say these few words just because I have this sponsor that wants to." He's just not like that, okay? Yeah. And you have to respect that. But we, because of EBAI, and because Koi is EBAI's brand, we have an opportunity that I think no other organization has, where I'm thinking, again, this is kind of early thinking, but can Koi become like the influencer, okay? Can this brand, like, rather than basically having, rather than having like all the influencers kind of circling on the outside, being part of Koi, can we basically build like a content team inside of Koi where we can basically use that to tell kind of our stories to our people over there. But to do that, okay, it's not an easy thing to create like a content studio, a production team.
Not easy, no.
You have creators, you have writers, you have like all of the things that basically have to go together. And I think of the many opportunities that we have to put like the esports, the players, the influencers, the fans, all of the stuff that we're putting together can all be centralized around like a content platform that we basically talk about, whether it's Twitch or YouTube or whatever it is. Maybe it's in other countries as well. But I think, to me, that is one of the biggest opportunities that we have. And so, and maybe, the fans over there can realize that, one of the things that we will not do is just move without thinking first about what we're going to do. Okay, I think the platform that we have here can be a big and I think a global platform always kind of Spanish language first in its kind of background, but it could kind of be bigger over time. And I think if we manage it well and think it up and do everything in a high quality fashion, okay, I think we have an incredible amount of potential. I see the potential that we have right now, and content, merch, membership platform, like all the stuff that you're talking about, whether it's Counter-Strike, other teams, like they're all parts of the pieces that we have that we're going to grow and we're going to succeed in, across the board. But, we're going to do it with a lot of thought and research and planning. And then when we announce it, hopefully it won't be like the announcement that we made for Fortnite.
Right. Hopefully, no. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It will be great. Yeah, just like the membership.
I got more messages from that kind of thing than almost anything else that we've done. So
I saw so many people talking to you. It was incredible about that day. Yeah.
I was with IBAI, by the way.
Right.
And just as an aside, we were, I was in Barcelona. I was with IBAI and some of the things over there, and so some of this stuff was starting to leak. And to be perfectly honest, like I'm not involved like in all of the details, okay? I heard that this was happening, okay? I didn't get involved in all of the kind of little detail. I think many of us heard that this was happening, but nobody was like so focused on it to basically really maybe do the research that our fans did for us, okay? So it was a good idea, okay, that was badly executed, but it was already starting to leak. And so I was with IBAI, I was at his house, and I said, what do you think is going to happen here? And he said, it's going to be a disaster. And I said, really? Again, I was still trying to figure it out because I wasn't like in the loop on a lot of the stuff. And then I was with one of the other people here, and then we left. Like, we didn't talk much about it because I didn't know the context. And I said, if he thinks it's going to be a disaster, this is going to be a disaster, okay? So, before I could kind of wrap our stuff around it, we announced it, but because we had the heads up, because I knew that it was going to probably result in what it resulted, but a little bit too late to be able to do anything about it, we started doing the plans to basically say, let's change, let's move away from this, okay? And it wasn't, it's not easy to move away if you've got contracts and you've got deals and you've got the stuff that is already in place. For one thing, you have to make sure you inform the right people first before you inform the public that you're no longer doing something. Right. That was, look, if we can, we're going to make mistakes, okay? And if we can make mistakes and fix them fast, I think that's the best thing that we can do. And I will never be in a position where I will continue in a mistake because it will be embarrassing to just admit that it was a mistake and to change my mind, okay?
Right.
And again, there was elements of that I was not aware of before, okay? Or maybe we were aware of it, but didn't think it was as big of an issue as our fans were able to basically go out and find additional details that maybe we could have known before. And I have never gone back and said, let's go and do full research here to see. Now, the fans have spoken. I've seen what their concerns are. There is never going to be in any situation where I can basically tell them that they are wrong because I agree with them in a lot of the different things. So let's kind of move it up. But yeah, I was there. I saw that coming. It was from out of nowhere. All of a sudden, I heard like a thunderstorm coming. When IBAI said, it's going to be a disaster. And I said,
alarm.
What? Well, okay. And again, I thought we had people that, had done, I don't want to talk about that. I will say though that, look, we are a community-based organization. We listen to our fans. And one of the things I kind of I'm learning very quickly from IBAI is that, your community matters, and you're not, without the community, you're not much. And, I am very fortunate to be in a position where, I can make the ultimate decisions. I don't make every decision, but I do hear about a lot of them, right? And so, I am a steward of the brand for a period of time, but, what we do belongs to our fans. They're what make us who we are. And you know, it's very difficult for, like, I'm just not going to be in a position where I'm going to basically say, you know, too bad on something like that. You know, I'm going to change my mind. Like, the fans don't decide everything at the end of the day, because if we let the fans decide everything, we would probably be out of business in a short period of time, because we only have a limited amount of money,
Right.
so we have to make decisions, okay? But at the same time, you know, I'm not going to make decisions that are so unpopular that our fans walk away from us.
Right. Well, I think everything is pretty clear, and I think the fans will really appreciate this, because it's been like crystal clear, all the questions that they were asking, and you answered them perfectly. Thank you for the interview. Thank you for giving us the interview, and it's a pleasure to see you again.
Okay.